Welcome to Around the World in 80.
All right, so get ready to totally crank up the time machine because this deep dive is taking us straight back to the 1980s.
Back to the future.
Yeah, exactly. But we're not just reliving the big hair and shoulder pads. We're diving deep into the music scene with none other than the 80s guy on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. His channel's amazing.
Right. He's got this massive library of curated 80s playlists. And seriously, there's something for everyone.
It's true. What I think is so cool about his channel, though, is that it goes way beyond just the, the obvious hits.
Totally.
He digs deep into all those subgenres and unearths some real hidden gems.
So it's more than just a nostalgia trip, that it's like a musical education.
Exactly. For example, he has this one playlist dedicated entirely to the new romantic movement, which was huge in the UK, but didn't quite have the same impact here in the US.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so who are we talking about here?
Well, you've got your big names like Spandau Ballet and ABC, of course, but then he'll throw in these lesser-known bands like Japan and Classics Nouveau that even I had kind of forgotten about.
See, those are the finds I love.
Yeah.
The ones you didn't even know you were missing.
Right. It's like rediscovering a whole era of music.
And it makes you realize, the 80s were so much more than just, like a prayer and living on a prayer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was a time of incredible musical experimentation, You had the rise of electronic music, new wave synth-pop, but also this whole evolution of hard rock and heavy metal happening at the same time. And within all of those genres, you had these fascinating subgenres popping up left and right.
So many layers to unpack. Speaking of which, I was checking out the 80s guys playlist called was it Forgotten 80s Gems, I think?
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
And I stumbled across this band, China Crisis. Ever heard of them?
Giggly. Yeah, they're great.
They're amazing. I'd never heard of them before, but they have this really cool atmospheric synth sound that I just totally got sucked into.
It's so evocative of that era.
Totally. Yeah. And it made me wonder how many other bands from that time are out there that I've just completely missed out on.
Right. It's there's this whole world of 80s music waiting to be rediscovered.
And that's the beauty of curated playlists like this.
I know. It's like having this musical archaeologist, digging through the layers of time to unearth these forgotten treasures.
Okay, that is the perfect analogy. I love it. It reminds us that the 80s music scene was incredibly diverse and in many ways still is this unexplored territory.
Totally agree. It's an invitation to dive in and get lost in the music.
You know what else I love about the 80s guy?
Yeah.
It's how he puts these playlists together.
Oh, yeah. They're really well organized.
He's got everything you could think of, right?
Yeah.
You've got your genre-specific lists, just pure 80s synth pop or a killer 80s new wave live set.
Mm-hmm.
But then he'll have these other playlists that are more thematic,
Yeah.
Songs that define the John Hughes era.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right. It's he creates these curated musical experiences.
Yeah.
It's not just listening to a random shuffle. It's he's crafted a whole mood.
Yeah, and that's so important these days, because we're just inundated with music constantly.
Oh, tell me about it. A million songs at our fingertips.
Exactly. So having someone curate a listening experience for you, someone who really knows the music and has a vision for it, it's invaluable.
It's like having a tour guide for a museum.
Exactly.
I love exploring museums on my own.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's so much better when you have that expert there to point out the things you might have missed.
Totally. You get so much more out of the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about these playlists. It's he's highlighting these hidden connections within the music.
And those connections are so important because they help us understand the music in a deeper way, how it all fits together.
100%.
Take that John Hughes playlist, for example. It's not just a random collection of songs from that era. He's capturing a specific feeling, a cultural moment. Those movies were so iconic, and they really defined the 80s for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. They were the soundtrack to our lives.
Right. And so when you listen to their songs again, it's you're transported back to that time.
Totally. And speaking of being transported back in time, one of my favorite playlists of his is The Best of My 80s Live.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's just something about live music.
Yeah.
It's so raw and immediate.
Absolutely. You can feel the energy.
Right. And this playlist just perfectly captures that raw energy of the 80s music scene. You can practically feel the crowd roaring along to these iconic performances.
It's you're right there in the middle of it all.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because live performance was so central to the 80s music scene.
Oh, totally. I mean, this was before social media and everything. So artists couldn't connect with their fans instantly online like they can today.
Right.
Live shows were everything back then.
And like that energy totally comes through in the recordings too.
100%.
Like take Duran Duran, for example.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Their live shows were legendary.
Right.
And you can totally hear that charisma, that showmanship. It bleeds into their studio albums.
Totally. And it's not even just about the energy either. Live performances, they kind of show you a different side of the music sometimes.
How so?
Well, you hear the rawness,
Oh.
the spontaneity that you don't always get in a studio recordings, like you're hearing the musicians feed off the crowd.
Yeah.
Maybe they improvise a little, or like even throw in a little mistake here and there. It just makes it feel more human, more alive.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting a glimpse behind the curtains. Like you're right there in the studio with them.
Yeah.
Or like at the show, seeing how it all comes together.
Exactly. And it reminds us that those artists, they're real people making real music.
Yeah.
And that connection with the audience, that's what it's all about.
It's like a reminder that the 80s music scene wasn't just about, synthesizers and drum machines.
Yeah.
It was about real musicianship.
100%.
And that energy, that like raw talent.
Yeah.
That's something you just can't fake.
Totally agree. And I think that's why people are still so drawn to 80s music today, Even if you weren't even alive back then, you can put on a live recording from that era and still feel that energy.
It's timeless. Okay, so we've talked about the 80s guy and like his incredible playlist, how he curates these musical journeys. And we've gone deep into like the different genres, the themes, the whole live music scene. But like, what's the takeaway for our listeners?
That's the big question, right? I think it's an invitation, to rediscover the 80s, go beyond just the hits you remember from the radio, explore those subgenres we talked about, those forgotten gems, or like throw on a live album and just let that energy wash over you.
Yeah. Use his playlist as a starting point and see where they take you.
Exactly. You might be surprised at what you discover.
It's all about the joy of discovery, right?
Right.
And who knows, maybe you'll find your new favorite band hidden in one of the 80s guys' playlists.
You never know.
So yeah, go out there, dive in, and most importantly, let the music transport you. Until next time.